Hello, I am Dr. Loren M. Hill, your academic career advancement coach. Welcome to another episode of our podcast, Advancing Your Career in Higher Ed. So today I have with me Dr. Emily Yeager, and she is the assistant professor at East Carolina University Department of Recreation. She's also the interim director of the Miller School of Entrepreneur Chris Small Business Resource Center. And so today we are going to have a real conversation about balancing family when you're in the academy. So, Dr. Yeager is going to talk to us today about her experience, some of the experiences of her colleagues, and we're just going to talk about what happens when sort of nobody's looking, right? In those private, quiet times where you are really trying to hold it together and maybe not doing so well. So, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hill, for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
You're so welcome, and I am really happy to be having this conversation on this episode because last episode I was talking about mental health, right? And so as you all know, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist as well as a certified coach. So I'm always here to talk about the behavioral health aspects. So, Dr. Yeager, tell us about why this topic is important to you.
So, I recently received promotion and tenure at the university. So, that's
Congratulations.
you. And that took 7 years because I took an extension for COVID. We were offered 1 year extensions for that. And then I also had a baby during that time. Thank
Congratulations.
you. I took a year extension for that as well. So normally that's a 5 year clock, but
Yeah.
it's been 7 years. And during that time as well, I took on the directorship of this Small Business Resource Center, as you mentioned earlier, which happens to be in a different college than my home department. And so
Okay.
we can talk about that too in a little bit.
Yes.
That's of interest is being split between two colleges and two
Yep.
disciplines and how
Mhm.
that even works and why that's important to think about for stress management perspective. So all of these things have happened in honestly a relatively short amount of time, less than a decade, all of these changes have happened. But they haven't
Mhm.
just happened to me, they've happened to my family. So
Yeah.
I have a husband, I have a 5 year old son now. So he was basically a COVID baby, and I have a dog. So our immediate family all went through these transitions. And of course, we had other things happening, in each of our other respective lives, but giving the perspective of today. So I thought that this would be a good topic to talk about, especially as for those in academia that are interested in, it may not be climbing the ladder, but doing something different or bigger than what you're doing at the moment.
Mhm.
That has been an extremely challenging uh, journey for me because, as I mentioned earlier, crossing over into other disciplines, other colleges, it's not just the academic side that you're learning, it's also the cultures that clash and
Mhm.
sometimes intersect. And then, so you're basically learning another job as you're trying to do another one. And so that ultimately creates time constraints, energy and emotional constraints. And I just think that it's something that I wish that someone would have talked to me about as I was entering academia was how can it be possible and how do you do it strategically um,
Mhm.
while also preserving yourself?
Yes. So I like how you sort of were like, how do I say this, right? Because
Yeah.
yes, I completely resonate with what you're saying. I too was in a position at one point where I was in a different area than I had been trained in, and I was managing a research institute that was, I could do it, but I was happy to raise my hand to try to do it because I was trying to sort of, as you had mentioned, just trying to expand, right? Not necessarily ascend, but try some different things on to see how they fit, only to find out that they actually did help with my ascension, right? So sometimes it is, you know, I hesitate to use the word happenstance, but I can't think of a better one at this time. And things just happen and they work out for you. But there's certainly other aspects of your life that are then impacted by those things, right? So there could be some fallout with the family or, well, why didn't you talk to me about it before you did this, that, and the other? So not sure if you experienced any of that, but it's great when we have people in our support system who are like, yep, sounds good, I'm all for it. But then there's the times where it's not quite that way.
Well, and I'm really glad you brought that up because I do have a partner who is very much like, that sounds great. If you feel like that's something you want to do, go for it. And that is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. But it's also hard. So, for example, when I was deciding to take on the directorship of the center, I mean, it's still been a great decision, I think, for me personally and professionally. But I mean, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. So, I mean, I have a supportive partner, but I also didn't. So I actually took this on before I even had tenure, and I was very, some people would say, why would you ever do that before tenure? I felt very confident. My chair felt very confident that I was going to have, undoubtedly achieve tenure, and there was a lot of synergy in terms
Mm,
of research, productivity, service, teaching,
mhm.
etc. So synergy is a huge, huge word there.
Yes.
But I didn't have. Um, I kind of wished that when I entered into that role that I had someone in the workplace
Mhm.
that was my friend that told me, "Hey, remember, don't forget that when you're at home, take that hat off. Or remember that when, this isn't everything. Or remember, like, you should maybe just say no to that because you don't have to say yes." I
Right.
just wish that I had had that sort of, I have mentors in my corner, but they weren't here with me every day. So like I didn't, and that's another part to my experience is I am the only woman within our entrepreneurship school that operates as a faculty member and sort of just overall staff. And so
Mhm.
while the people I work with are wonderful, it is different to have sort of that female companionship and mentorship and someone in your corner that can give you the real talk that you need, and it's going to understand even the personal things that you're bringing with you to work every day.
Yes. So I am glad you brought this up, right? Being the only, right, in an area where then some of us are familiar with the term hyper visible, right? And so that can bring on, it can be great, but it can be awful, right? Because, yay, we all notice Dr. Yeager because she is the only woman here, right? But then that there's this thing, all eyes on me, because either people are looking at me to see what I have to say for all the women, as if that would be a thing or even possible. And one of my sorority sisters said something recently that I say, you know what, that is a really interesting concept. She said, everybody's not clapping for you. And so when you're hyper visible, there are people who take that as an opportunity to make you a target, right? So, and they may be all smiles in, the all director department meeting, but then what are they really plotting? Are they plotting to support you or are they plotting to topple you? And I don't know about you, but I've certainly experienced that. And it was not great. It was very, very difficult. And, you know, it was very unpleasant.
Yeah, I think for me, what I have experienced, I wasn't familiar with the term hypervisible, so now I've definitely learned something new today. Thank you for that.
Hmm.
Is I think I actually just inwardly put a lot more pressure on myself. Like
Hmm.
I worried, and this is going to sound super trivial, but I realized since I came into this role, I cared a lot more about how I looked when I came to work. I felt like I had to always perform in terms of my outward appearances, how I behaved, how I talked. Had to make, I like overanalyzed, overthought every single thing that I said in the room, not to the point where I was artificial, but to the
Hmm.
point to where when I got home, I was drained. I was so
Yeah.
tired. And in the beginning, it really sucked, to be honest, because I didn't have a lot of bandwidth for my husband. I didn't have, in terms of that emotional, like,
Hmm.
connection. And then I will say that fortunately, as I was making that sort of transition into this new role, my son was still a baby then. So, like, at that point, he wasn't talking and he wasn't in that need for the mental connection. So, I could give him the physical things that he needed. But now I'm just really grateful that I wasn't making that transition at this point in his life where he's 5 and going on 6. And, you've got to be just as present for him as you are for your husband, as for the dog, as for like everyone
Yeah.
in the house. And you should because they're present for you, right? And so that for me, that I think that's been something that I still like feel that pressure, but at the same time, now I've gotten into the routine. It just doesn't bother me anymore. But
That
I
is a
will,
great place to be, Dr.
yeah.
Yeager, because there is this societal thing that happens with women. I'm just going to put it out there, right? As much as we'd like to think it doesn't matter how we come in, and that really, frankly, we shouldn't care, but we have to. I remember some years ago attending a workshop that the person was talking about sort of executive presence, right? And how, um, a CEO of a company could come in with a black turtleneck and some man jeans and some tennis shoes, and they're essentially a captain of industry. But if a woman with the same or more brain power came in with a black turtleneck and some mom jeans and some tennis shoes, then it would be no one would take her seriously, right? And so there is that piece that whether we want it or not, there are these gender differences that can occur, and they often are taxing because, yeah, you're kind of worried about, well, what are they going to think? Whether you're the only one or one of several, it's just different, right? And I think there's this underlying, often unnamed emotional tax that we feel, and you did a great job of, articulating that. So thank you for bringing that forward to the conversation.
Yeah, and I wish that, just briefly, one more thing about that. I wish if I had a mentor to talk to me, if anybody's listening to this later and thinking about, like, I wish I had comebacks for anytime someone tells me that I look nice or that, wow, what are you wearing today looks like such and such, or like
Yes.
describing like my aura as I'm walking down the hall because of what I'm wearing or how I look. And it's like I'm so conflicted because I'm like, well, I did put effort into how I look today, but at the same time, like no one else is being complimented in this workspace. And it's not just, it's everywhere I go, right? Like even as a faculty member teaching, anybody who's teaching knows that women, it is so common on our student evaluations at the end of the year. Undoubtedly, someone's going to comment on something about the way you dressed or the way you did
Right,
your hair or the way that,
right,
you know,
right.
whatever it is. And I'm like, this is insane. So I wish I had strategies on how to just in those moments, like where I'm uncomfortable and kind of annoyed. Like, I wish I had something clever to say back.
Yes, yes. And even that, right, having to respond at all or wanting to respond at all is a drain, right? Because surely there's other things that we could be thinking about that are far more important. And so I guess we'll have to try to figure it out together, right? So having mentors and having safe spaces and for a while there were some affinity groups where we could join and really talk and have sort of these honest conversations. uh, when someone is new, they don't have any connections, they can't seem to find someone to reach out to, or they just are kind of stumbling in the dark, which I think we've all been there at some point. What would you say to them? What would you say to them?
So earlier when I mentioned that I have mentors, I'm putting that in air quotes in case
Yes,
someone's listening and not watching.
yes.
These are people, and to be clear, I have like two. Okay, so I don't want y'all to think I have this whole bench of people that I can call at any moment in my life. Um, I'm very selective about who I call my mentor because it's people who have actually invested time and energy with me, and when I know they didn't have it to really help me out. So um, they didn't invite me to be
Mm,
the mentee. I identified, and they were women who I saw as were very capable, not only at their jobs, but seemed to, and of course, we talked about this earlier. I'm not saying they had it all together, but I'm saying
mhm,
that they were at peace with themselves when I was around them. And that's what I really to, I wanted to surround myself with people who had somehow figured that part out. Like, how can
mhm.
not everything's going to be perfect, but how can I, when I'm around you, you feel like you at least have a calming presence, that you're not in crisis or chaos all the time, like I currently was when I was looking for for my mentors. And so I reached out to them and it was almost like it was weird. It was like a dating proposal, really. I mean, I was like,
Yes,
hey, I wrote them an email and I said, listen, I met you at such and such. So these were people I'd met at some type of professional development thing. I'd stuck my neck out, decided to attend. I really enjoyed being around them. I told them that. I said, I really enjoyed being around you for X, Y, and Z. I'm really impressed by what you've done, here, here, and here. I'm looking for mentorship. I was very clear about what I needed. I wasn't looking for a friend. I was
right.
looking for, now, I mean, that's great if they turn into a friend, but that's not, I wasn't asking them for that emotional energy. I was literally asking them for the guidance. I needed a sounding board, potential collaborator down the line that I trusted. And like that's also really difficult if you're a new faculty member, is knowing who to trust in your collaborations. I don't, that sounds like I'm saying some people are going to backstab you or something like that. That's not what I mean, though. It's like people that you can depend upon to actually do the things that you need to get done. And so I asked a few people to be my mentors, and I was declined a couple of times. Not be and it was a polite decline. It wasn't that, they didn't like me or that they, didn't want to invest in me. They just didn't have the bandwidth. And to
Mhm,
me, I found that impressive that they were even able to tell me no.
mhm.
And anyway, so when I finally landed on the two women that were willing to, say, yeah, sure, I'll meet with you, like once a month or whenever you need it. Here's my cell phone number. I used it. I I will text my mentees, or excuse me, my mentors when I'm in a sticky situation. Like, let's say I don't know how to respond, for example, to a comment that someone has made to me, or I'm in a situation that I don't know how to navigate. They're the people I can text and say, what would you do in this situation?
Mhm.
And they're going to respond back, and they're not going to, they don't judge you. And um, yeah, because they've been there and done that.
So that's really great. I love how you outlined your journey to finding mentors, right? And I give you an A plus in that because oftentimes people talk about mentors. We use the word a lot. We talk about the relationship a lot, but oftentimes it's incorrect, right? And part of my doctoral research years and years ago was on various types of relationships and supports that would help someone complete a doctoral program. And so there are multiple relationships that one can have. And I've kind of now developed that into what I call a team me, right? So a mentor is one piece of it. And I'm always reminding people that you find mentors by looking for someone who's done what you'd like to do so that you can hear how they did it. And when they're talking to you and giving you some advice, they're talking about their experience, right? So based on what I did, this is how I think it might be. And they know you, so they're customizing the feedback in that way. But it's very important to have mentors. It's important to have multiple layers of support, right? Social support, professional support, industry support. And the more support you have, I think the better you'll be at rebalancing, right? Because we're not always completely balanced. It's sort of like a teeter-totter. There are times where you need more this way or more that way. But if you have people that you can call up, lean to, and I always say it's great to have diverse support, right? Because hey, it'd be great if I have a gentleman on my team who can give me the feedback of like, that's silly. Why are you even thinking about that? Like, here's what I could say. And I would then have an exchange to say, well, I'm thinking about it because I'm not a guy, right? And you're not thinking about it because you're not a woman. So how do we now move this challenge forward, right? So has that been your experience as well?
Yeah, I think about so who I now have is it's so I think about mentors as kind of like a board of directors for a nonprofit. Like you're the nonprofit, right? You're not making anybody any money by them serving you.
Yes.
It's all volunteer time. Mentors, if they're serving like a nonprofit board member, I mean, they're on it for like 2 years max, right?
Mhm.
And so that's
Mhm.
another important thing is mentors they can be for a specific, very specific thing. So it could be for like a month. You need someone that you're working with on something, or maybe it's a longer term commitment. And I think about, I love that you brought up diversity in the mentorship. So it's either they're going to have relevance to your experience, or there's a skill set there that they have that you were saying that you want to aspire to be either at their level or to obtain that skill set. And so I kind of have a lot of different sub teams. So for my teaching, we're told teaching research service in
Yeah.
academia. So like in teaching, I have one faculty member who I greatly admire. I think they're an incredible instructor. They are not a research faculty member, but they are an incredible instructor. If I have a
Mhm.
question about pedagogy, like that's the person I go to, or that's the person I send, hey, I'm thinking about doing this activity in the classroom. What do you think? How would you do this differently?
Uh-huh.
And that's also the person then that now we've published a couple of pedagogy papers together because
Great.
they know that I'm interested in what they're doing. It's also a get give model. And so that's something I'm always thinking about too with my mentors is how can I give them something in return. So like they're the first people, especially if it's, thinking about just purely from research and teaching, they're the people I'm going to first when I have an opportunity. So, hey, I
Mhm.
have this grant opportunity. I know that you do X, Y, and Z, whether it's your skill set or the relevance. Are you interested in being a part of this? And so I don't, I'm, these people haven't like left me yet. So I'm assuming this is a good model, but I would say it's, think about it if it were you, if someone really wanted your time and energy and advice, what is something that you would love for them to give you without you asking? And that is some type of benefit. And in this case, the currency in academia is deliverables, your outputs that you're
Mhm.
measured on for annual evaluations.
Hmm. And so I really like that piece of using the framework of the nonprofit, the board of directors, the give get, those types of things that we're familiar with or kind of should be. And so, as we're talking about having the support that you need, it sounds to me like part of how you're able to balance family life and academia, work, career life, is by having these various components in your team to help you sort of bounce ideas off of, come to solutions, help you sort of carry the load so that when you get home at the end of the day, you are able to transition.
Definitely, for sure.
So, in thinking about, so we spent quite a bit of time talking about those folks who help you in, while you're there. Now, tell me about how once you get home, you're able to set some of that stuff aside and really enjoy your family time.
So, some practical things that I do is everyone from my graduate assistants to my interns to colleagues that I work with, anytime I introduce myself for the very first time we meet, I always bring up, by the way, you may not be able to reach me from the hours between 5 to 8 p.m. And honestly, probably not after 5, but if we really needed to meet, and sometimes like when you have international collaborators, like you have to do stuff later in the evening to make it work for them. But I really take that time super seriously. And it's so ingrained in me now. Like I get upset when I have to do evening commitments. Like for example, the center I direct, it's very heavy on community engagement and outreach. Well, when are community
Mhm.
members free? They're free after work.
Right, right.
So I do struggle. Like it really tears me apart sometimes when I have to miss that family time. But I mean, I even advertise it on syllabus day. It's a slide where I say, listen, if I don't answer emails after this time, it's because I'm doing this. And I show
Mhm.
pictures. I'm like, this is my dog playing with my son. This is my husband playing golf. This is me doing all these, like, this is my family. This is my life. And so, I don't check emails. I don't agree to do meetings. The only time I do those events is again, if it's tied to the center or if it's like something mandatory that the department is like, this is a fundraising event or whatever it is. Something else too that I, this is an interesting decision and might be controversial for some people who are listening. Um, I always had this vision that like my job, because I like it so much, would just naturally integrate with my family life. So, for example, if one of my departments I work in is having a tailgate for a
Mhm.
baseball game on a Saturday, why wouldn't we want to go to that, right? Like there's a
Mhm.
baseball game going on, there's going to be free food, they're going to have a
Mhm.
bouncy house, and I present it to my family and they're like, I don't want to go do that. And I'm like, why not? This is like exactly what we would have done anyway.
Mhm.
And I'm learning. I'm not saying I have learned this. At first I was like, well, man, like, should I be offended? Like, did I do something wrong? And the
Mhm.
answer is no. Like, for sometimes, like in your family situations and family, whatever that looks like for you, there might just need to be a clear cut and dry line between what's work and what's not work. And
Mhm.
honestly, like I'm okay with that now. Like I'm learning that if that's a boundary that someone in my life that I love needs for themselves, then like I'm willing to respect and honor that because I already dedicate 40 plus hours a week to this job. It's okay if I don't see people. I mean, I I'm all about community building and I want to build those relationships. But at the same time, it matters more about what's going to work best for my family. So, I apologize if anybody's listening to this that knows me and it's like, oh my God, you're not going to show up to anything. And it's like, no, that's not it. And we never said we
Right.
wouldn't. But I'm learning that like it's okay that like people that are not that don't work with me, whether it's my family, my friends, whoever, they don't have to care about what I do.
Right.
That's another thing that I'm learning to come to terms with.
I so appreciate your candor on both of those aspects, right? So, and it to me, I think the theme is boundaries, right? So you have the hard boundaries around, like, look, I'm with the family between this time and this time, you know. Don't if you don't see an email response from me, you can't be mad at me because I'm letting you know up front that these are my boundaries. This is when I'm not available, right? Very healthy. And so now the other part of it is for the family to be able to help with some boundaries that they want. And for us to be okay with it, right? So I think it's also great for the family to be able to have some input, right? So having balance between the workplace and the home life is sometimes a collaborative thing, right? Where there's some pieces where you're like, I'm going to protect you from this completely because you know, I got this. Then there's other pieces of it where you're like, hey, what do you all think about this? And then they can have the right to say yes or no, and here's why, hun, mom, if the dog could say something, it would, right? Mine is always saying something to us. So I really appreciate this input, Dr. Yeager. And so, a couple takeaways that I think we have from you today. There were many, many gems, but I really think that the audience will benefit from this idea of identifying resources within your industry, right? Collaborators, mentors, um, being okay with being the only one. And you can be okay with being the only one when you have these extra supports. And then having good boundaries, right? When to say yes, when to say no, how to say it, and then being able to pull on your team resources to help you sort of craft those stories. So, is there one other thing you'd like to leave our listeners with that might help them with their work-life balance? Something you wish someone would have told you, but you found out, and now you're like, this is what I always say.
I'm a very goal-oriented person. This is something that my husband has told me time and time again. And I've now realized, yes, I am a goal-oriented person. So your weekly life, if you're goal driven like I am, and actually a lot of academics, I would argue, probably are, that's how you
Yeah.
get to where you are. Um, if if you're only setting these professional goals for yourself every single week, like, if you don't set that intention of like, this is what I'm doing,
Hmm.
that's your work is gonna fill everything that you do in the week. So I just spent yesterday 5 hours of the work day mapping out the calendar, including my kids' calendar, work trips, things that my husband has coming up. And the next thing I'm scheduling today is my workouts and when I'm going to get those in, right? So going to my Zumba class that I really love. But I'm trying to go ahead and carve that out now for the fall and the spring semesters so that way even when I know, like, it doesn't matter what crunch time it is, there's always going to be a crunch time. I'm holding myself accountable with my goal of, like, I said I was going to go to do this Zumba class or whatever it is twice a week. So, I would say, even if you don't even know what your personal goal is, like, just carve out an hour of time, even if it means it's at 9 o'clock at night before you go to bed, whatever that is, And that is like an hour or 2 hours where you're doing something that requires you to get out of your box. So like it's something that's gonna improve your mental health, or it's going to improve your health, or maybe you just want to read a book. Like
Yes.
you like something that's not related to work. Like I just started the Game of Thrones series and I'm so loving it, right? And I read now like 30 minutes before bed. I don't care how tired I am. I just try to read 30 minutes. But like for I have found that that is such a gift to myself. I love opening up my weekly calendar and knowing all the work things are coming up and then seeing, oh wait, we've got this coming up and we have other things to look forward to. I think that that has a positive effect on the others around you in your life that are not in the work setting with you.
I really, really like that. I think that is the perfect last thing, right? Making sure that you're taking care of yourself, putting things in your calendar, planning them, no matter how small, 30 minutes of reading, time out for yourself. Because when you're doing that, then you're making yourself a priority as well. And that increases your well being, and you'll be able to balance your life more effectively. So, thank you again, Dr. Yeager, for spending time with us today. And once again, I'm Dr. Loren M. Hill, your academic career advancement coach. Thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to being with you in the future. Thank you, Dr. Yeager.
Thank you, Dr. Hill.